After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the meaning and importance of research and development, learn how innovation and R&D are related and how R&D promotes innovation, identify different types of cooperation in research and development, differentiate between different cooperative R&D and their effect on innovation. In the development of industries and competitiveness of firms, expenditure on research and development (R&D) plays a vital role. The extent of stock of existing R&D and policies to stimulate research and development through different cooperative agreements may benefit both firms and consumers by improving the quality or reducing the cost of products. Such policies may also affect the competitiveness of firms in international markets. In many countries, research and development policies are thus considered to be of vital importance in general for economic development, particularly the industrial development. Next is innovation and research and development activities. Innovations, either product and process innovation among other factors, are an important determinant of progressiveness of industries and competitiveness of firms. Firms have incentives to invest and cooperate in R&D if post-innovation market competition allows them to profit from their investments. However, the extent of post-innovation competition is itself determined by firms' R&D decisions. R&D that changes cost and qualities will change incentives for competition, which in turn changes incentives for firms to maintain a dominant position or to leapfrog a strong competitor. Furthermore, a firm in an oligopoly may invest in R&D not only to achieve lower production cost or produce better products, but also to change the competitive dynamics in the industry. Lower production cost can cause the innovating firm to increase its output, causing competitors to react and lower their outputs. Innovation in this situation benefits the firm both by lowering its cost and by increasing its equilibrium output. The former is a direct effect, while the latter is a strategic effect on competition. In this case, the strategic effect is an additional inducement to invest in a process innovation. Another force which determines R&D is the incentive to preempt competition. A firm with market power may be able to preserve its market power by innovating to deter the entry of rivals. In some circumstances, this preemption incentive can neutralize the disincentive for innovation that arises when an innovation eliminates profits earned with the legacy technology. Successful preemption, however, requires a number of conditions, including a dominant firm that can internalize most of the benefits of an investment that deters rivals. Competition in research and development has effects on the amount and timing of R&D that differ from competition in the product market before and after innovation occurs. If the outcome of R&D is highly uncertain, then increasing the number of firms engaged in a race to patent a new innovation generally reduces the expected arrival time of the innovation. Empirical studies conducted by various scholars has proved that increasing the number of firms engaged in R&D may have no effect on the timing of innovation if the output of R&D is relatively predictable and if one firm is far ahead of its rivals in the race to invent. The complexity of the relationship between innovation and market power or market structure stems from the diverse large number of uncertain factors that may influence the incentives to innovate, and their often opposing effects may reduce the welfare effect of innovation. These factors depend on the nature of intellectual property protection, characteristics of the invention, the extent of competition before and after innovation, and the dynamics of R&D. Determining the overall incentive to innovate requires answering many questions, including the following. What property rights exist to protect the intellectual property? Is the invention protected by patent or other intellectual property rights? And if so, is the patent IPR easy or difficult to invent around? Are there other mechanisms to protect an innovator from imitation or existence of well-defined property rights. What is the nature of the invention? Is it a cost-reducing process, cost-saving innovation, or a new product? Is it a minor advance, or does it have the potential to disrupt the industry hierarchy? Does it complement a firm's other products? Does it require fundamentally different capabilities to make or use than currently exist in the industry? The incentive to invest in R&D increases with the extent of monopoly profits that a firm can protect by innovating, and decreases with the profits that a firm can earn if it does not innovate. Innovation incentives differ for inventions that are protected by exclusive and non-exclusive intellectual property rights, as non-exclusive property rights imply greater post-innovation competition and lower profits from innovation. Arrow showed that for process innovations that reduce marginal production cost, innovation incentives are lower for a monopoly that is protected from both product and R&D competition than for a competitive firm, provided that the innovator maintains exclusive and permanent rights to the innovation. This result does not necessarily extend to product innovations. A monopolist that is protected from both product and R&D competition could have a greater incentive than a competitive firm to invest in product innovation. Relative investment incentives in monopoly and competitive markets are, however, similar for process and product innovations protected by exclusive and permanent rights when the innovations are drastic, in the sense that they make existing products or processes obsolete. Allowing for competition in R&D can reverse Arrow's theoretical result that given permanent and exclusive intellectual property rights, incumbents who are protected from product market competition have lower incentives than competitive firms to introduce non-drastic process innovations. Under some conditions, a firm that is a dominant supplier of an existing product has an incentive to preempt rivals by investing more in R&D than the rivals will gain from the innovation. Furthermore, a firm that has a large head start in R&D could have an incentive to maintain its lead over rivals, and that incentive could be sufficient to deter innovation competition. While it is difficult to make general conclusions about R&D incentives in different market structures, the analysis does permit some broad characterizations and lessons for antitrust policy for R&D intensive industries. Economic theory supports the proposition that competition is more likely to provide greater incentives for product and process innovations if the following conditions apply. These conditions apply for investment in R&D with and without exclusive rights to inventions. Although there is a stronger presumption that competition promotes investment in R&D if the inventor gains exclusive rights. Competition in the old product is intense. To the extent that competition in the old product is intense, this lowers the pre-innovation profit for a competitor that would be replaced by the new technology and increases its incentive to invent. The innovation is a major improvement. If the new product is such a major improvement relative to existing products that it would make the existing product obsolete, the competitor's lower replacement effect will give it a larger incentive to invest in R&D for the new product. Even without exclusive intellectual property protection, a competitor would have an incentive to invest in R&D for a major improvement, provided that it has a head start or some other protection from rapid imitation. The innovation does not increase the ability of the monopolist to price discriminate among consumers. A new product can be particularly valuable for a monopolist if it enables the firm to price discriminate among consumers by offering both its old and new products. If such price discrimination is not likely, the replacement effect suggests that the competitor would have a greater incentive to invest in R&D. A competitor and a monopolist would not have different abilities to price discriminate if the new product is a major improvement relative to the existing product and is protected by exclusive and effectively permanent intellectual property rights. Market conditions make preemption unlikely. The preemption incentive requires strong conditions and is unlikely to be significant if the incumbent firm faces product market competition or if there are alternative R&D paths that an incumbent firm cannot foreclose by patenting a new technology. Moreover, a head start in R&D is unlikely to preempt rivals if discovery is uncertain or if discovery does not foreclose alternative R&D paths. Empirical evidence for preemptive R&D investment by dominant firms is weak. The large body of economic theory and empirical studies on the relationship between competition and innovation fails to provide general support for this competerin hypothesis that monopoly promotes either investment in R&D or the output of innovation. The theoretical and empirical evidence also does not support a strong conclusion that competition is uniformly a stimulus to innovation. While specific industry characteristics and technological opportunities determine the equilibrium relationship between market structure and innovation, there are conditions that warrant a presumption that competition promotes innovation. Under these conditions, the theory and empirical evidence support the antitrust enforcement agency's efforts to promote innovation by challenging mergers that would harm product market competition. However, there are also circumstances for which it is reasonable to assume that competition does not affect or possibly reduces innovation incentives, while harm to innovation can be an additional reason to challenge mergers. Under some circumstances, benefits to innovation can also be an efficiency defense to permit mergers that would otherwise result in troublesome increases in market concentration. In figure, you can see the different elements of product innovation. First, demand, then research activity related to new good, then cost. They are further subdivided, which you can see in the table. Figure exhibits the elements of demand and supply which determine whether to take a project with significant research and development expenditure in a product-based innovation process where a new product is developed. Next, Research and Development Corporation. The economic literature offers a vast number of arguments about the incentives for innovative firms to cooperate on R&D, including import of technology with other partners. More recently, an article published on the determining factors of R&D Corporation grouped these determining factors into two main groups: elements related to protection and absorptive capacity and elements related to the complementary needs of external knowledge. The first group of factors concerns a firm's ability to protect and capture internal and external knowledge. The term absorptive capacity, which was introduced in a later study, noted that the dual role of R&D as a source of new information and as a tool that makes it easier for a firm to absorb existing information. They argue that absorptive capacity increases a firm's ability to identify, assimilate and exploit knowledge from the environment. A firm with a high absorptive capacity should thus be able to access a larger amount of knowledge than a firm with a lower capacity. To protect the results of their R&D activities, firms can invest in appropriation tools, and to absorb external knowledge, they can develop specific skills. Innovative firms with high absorptive capacities are more likely to cooperate in R&D with scientific bodies. Using this argument, Casimir and Veugelers distinguish between incoming spillovers, which affect a firm's innovation race, and appropriability, which affects a firm's ability to appropriate the returns from innovation. The second group of factors is related to the firm's lack of specific knowledge and its need for R&D cooperation with outside partners. Hedgedon finds that technological complementarities are one of the most important reasons for firms to cooperate on R&D and access to external knowledge. When an innovative firm requires external knowledge and skills to complement its internal knowledge, and when its need cannot be satisfied via the market, its incentive to cooperate increases. When innovative firms cooperate on R&D projects, especially with public bodies, they benefit from the complementary knowledge generated by other agents and share the risk on projects and access to public grants. An important policy-oriented question currently being debated in the developing countries concerns the relationship between their imports of technology and their indigenous technological capabilities. The debate has raised two important questions. First, does an enterprise decision to use imported technologies depend on it having initially undertaken in-house technological effort and acquired some technological capabilities? Secondly, do the imports of technology lead to further in-house efforts? Earlier empirical studies have given more attention to the later question. The former has attracted relatively little interest. This paper examines both questions with a common data set of Indian enterprises and then reconsiders the finding of some earlier studies. The role of in-house technological effort and capabilities has been recognized in the context of the economically advanced countries. Cohen and Leventhal and Rosenberg, among others, argue that an in-house efforts and capabilities help an enterprise to understand and assimilate technological developments in other enterprises. Translated to the context of the developing countries, this suggests that an enterprise in-house efforts and capabilities may help it to assimilate and make effective use of its imported technologies. The initial in-house capabilities may thus influence the enterprise decisions to obtain imported technologies. The effects of the imported technologies on in-house efforts have been discussed by a number of writers. There seem two opposing views. One view, voiced by Mike Telka and Pillai, is that the imports reduce the developing countries' need to undertake their own technological efforts. The developing country enterprises become dependent on the imports. An opposing view, suggested by Blumenthal, Desai and Lau, is that the imports of technology may be a building block for in-house capabilities. In-house effort will be required as the imports have to be adapted to the local economic environment. These alternative views have been examined in a number of cross-sectional regression studies. Most authors report a positive, though weak, relationship between some measures of imported technologies and the enterprise's overall expenditures on in-house research and development effort. The inference from these results has been that the imports of technology help rather than discourage in-house technological efforts. An enterprise decision to use imported technologies may be influenced by its own technological capabilities and by certain other enterprise level characteristics, and whether the imports of technology in turn may subsequently lead to further in-house technological efforts. It is postulated that the relationship between the imported technologies and in-house efforts and capabilities may be greatly affected by the enterprise economic environment influenced by government policies. The Indian situation, enterprises in the electrical and electronics industry, is a good testing ground for these questions. The Indian government has monitored enterprises' imports of technology and also their ability to assimilate those imports. At the same time, the government has had restrictions on competing imports and has made use of industrial licensing. These policies may well have affected enterprises' decisions about their imports of technology and their technological efforts. R&D Corporation and their types. Traditionally, the research and development process is instrumental to innovative behavior of firm and dynamic industries. R&D Corporation, on the basis of firm strategy, is commonly reflected in the following four major categories: in-house R&D, making itself; external R&D by, in-house R&D make with external R&D by, in-house R&D, external R&D and R&D corporation mixed. On the basis of the nature of direction of corporation, research and development is categorized into following: horizontal cooperation in R&D, vertical cooperation in R&D. Horizontal cooperation occurs when competitors are in an output market or compares modes of R&D cooperation with R&D competition, whereas vertical cooperation in R&D occurs when a firm operating in an output market cooperates with a firm in an input market to initiate a project on development of a new product or process. The vertical R&D cooperation, that is cooperation between suppliers and buyers, is affected by the search for mutual organizational benefits, the exploitation of asset complementarities, as well as by the perceived environmental uncertainty. The focus on vertical cooperation implies that the competitive and profit maximizing motives are less important. The economic theory based on empirical studies provides some insight on why firms choose in-house, external or cooperations as an efficient way to organize their R&D activities. Import of technology. In today's dynamic world, firms have to keep pace with fast changing technology of rivals. The transaction cost coupled with uncertainty and technological complexity make firms opt for external cooperation or import of technology rather than relying exclusively on in-house R&D. Many large firms sign contracts with foreign firms to purchase of technical know-how, and it is a part of firm's strategy to optimally mix in-house R&D with externally acquired technology. The absorptive capacity of a firm is an important precondition to successfully capitalize on externally generated knowledge, that is knowledge generated by import of technology. Now let us summarize. An innovation is an important determinant of the progressiveness and competitiveness of industries and firms. Intra-firm cooperation in research and development to stimulate innovation is a channel to encourage firms to enhance expenditure on R&D, thereby reducing the duplicate nature of innovation and optimal use of R&D. The major determinants of research and development cooperation are grouped into two. First, elements related to protection and absorptive capacity, and elements related to the complementary needs of external knowledge. The absorptive capacity of a firm is an important precondition to successfully capitalize on externally generated knowledge. The economic theory based empirical studies provide some insight on why a firm chooses in-house, external or corporations as an effective way to organize its R&D activities.